I wish people in the industry shared more how much they charge. A lot of people don't want to share that. And then you get massive price gaps and people don't know what to charge and they start looking silly.
Meet Jack Smith, cinematographer, drone pilot, gimbal operator, and owner of a successful camera crew and kit company, Moonshine Film.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it.
As I'd advise to anyone starting is you may want to choose what you do and stick to that, because even if you are absolutely brilliant at all different things, which I believe I am, people don't naturally want to assume you are good at all these things. They want to go to that person because they specialize in that thing.
Yeah.
Whilst his journey has been unorthodox, his dedication and experience have led him to excelling in free film disciplines and working on high-end productions with world-leading brands.
My main business is business to business. So production companies are looking to hire me, not clients generally.
Right.
His route was unplanned and certainly not free from challenges, but is an awe-inspiring story for those starting out in the film industry.
I remember looking at camera and the other runners who were way older than me at that time saying, "Oh, don't look at that. You've never been to university. That's not for you."
Together we discuss ambition, authenticity, work-life balance and knowing your value. We delve into how to find and satisfy your clients both creatively and financially, whilst balancing risk with essential investment.
And this is a major problem for most people in the industry. And I've spoken to people who are in their 50s and 60s and they say this in the sense that you're so used to being the hamster on the wheel, like constantly going from set to set. And I believe you need to go through that stage, but don't let that become your life, because once you've kind of made it somewhere, it's now time to start thinking with your head rather than with your muscle.
Jack offers some valuable insights from his 10 years experience, both in front and behind the camera. From kit recommendations to mindset matters, this podcast is sure to arouse attraction from anyone with an interest in making cinematography their business. With your host, George Chioka.
Rolling, huh?
So first of all, thank you so much for coming, Jack. I think let's just literally dive into it, isn't it?
Okay.
Tell us a bit more about you. Tell us a bit more, how did you, landed in the world of cinematography?
Okay, well, I am a cinematographer, drone pilot, gimbal operator, and I have a boutique kit rental, kit and crew company. I started, I guess I'd say, an unorthodox route. Long story short, I started as a child actor by accident. I was an amateur boxer and an agent came in and put me in a music video. From then on, I started working behind camera. Well, I started doing, I started doing more and more music videos and like small commercial parts in front of camera, but I was never a trained actor. Didn't really see a career for myself in that respect. And I wanted something more sustainable, and I like the look of the life behind set. So I used to ask runners if I could help them. And a special person in my career, Grant Sandy Phillips, was the first person that took a chance on a 16-year-old guy and said, "Go on, let's go on set and help me." And from then on, I went from running into camera assisting, based on one day the camera, second day C was ill, didn't turn up. Oh, you got to step up. And then from then on, discovering how cameras work properly, buying kit, getting into camera operating, drone operating, cinematography, and here we are.
That was really a journey. So were you planning actually to be, a cinematographer, or unplanned, literally just?
No, it developed. Like, first of all, it's like, I want some money and I want to do something with my life. This acting thing is working. Then you get older, I'm like, this acting thing is not it's not that stable anymore. Behind camera work is being a runner. I was like, well, there's money there. Then I thought as a runner, I was going to just progress the runner route, which is like runner, third AD, second AD, first AD. I realize now in hindsight that craft really doesn't suit me, but that's what I thought was available to me. I remember looking at camera and the other runners who were way older than me at that time saying, "Oh, don't look at that. You've never been to university. That's not for you. Like, that's not a thing you can do." And I remember that being a specific funny thing. So I always thought I was going to be in the AD department until I accidentally got into camera, realized, well, you can figure this out without university. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. And I went from there, yeah. So that's when I decided, I'd say, after a while of camera assisting, then drone piloting, then realizing I've got a knack for cinematography in terms of aerial cinematography, say, I decided, well, I'd like to be a cinematographer, but I also always looked at life more like a business rather than passion. And I realized, I figured droning wasn't going to be sustainable because the market was changing, the Mavic, etc., coming out more saturated, more drone rules. And I figured I'm going to need to put my eggs in different baskets. So I got into ground filming, and then that led to cinematography.
If I remember correctly, right, I've been stalking for a bit, just before our episode to just do our homework, and I've seen like your first camera. Your first camera was a Canon. Did I saw right? A DSLR?
No, my first camera I remember specifically because I got a loan from my grandma to get that was a Sony A7S Mark II. That was all the range back at that time.
Didn't do my homeworks properly.
No. Maybe if you look that deep, you might have seen a camera that I would have borrowed, because that was back at the time of like the Canon 5D, and then the Sonys were coming out.
The question is, did you manage to give your grandma the money back?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did. And no one in my family thought I was going to. But that goes down to just business principles in life, which I've developed from is, you gotta do by your word.
How many cans of beans did you have to endure to buy all the equipment?
Well, in terms of, it was difficult. And I'd say, but I did some things which, let's just say, I'm hoping I can't get in trouble for saying this now. But a big part of it was back then, as in I had a different attitude to risk, really. I don't come from money. Credit was different back then for some reason. There was no COVID, no interest recession or anything like that. So companies were just giving credit cards willy-nilly. And I stacked credit cards. The 24-month no interest ones, I wouldn't say lied. I may have just been a bit vague about how much I was really earning. And I managed to get about 7 or 8. So I just plunged into, into camera equipment and prayed it paid off. That, along with loaning from absolutely every single person in my family. This is, parents, everything. Everything was on the line. And that was the jolt in my life. You have to be serious now, because if this doesn't work out, everyone is going to suffer massively, So it forced me our way. That's why I like risk. It forces you to behave accordingly. Everything changed. Even from, I used to ride motorbikes. I used to be a bit childish and, riding too fast. Everything changed. From that day on, I was like, maybe I'm not going to behave in this way, because now if anything happens to me, people are going to be in trouble.
Like, what age were you at this age? So
I'd say I started doing this properly at like 20. Just turning 20.
Wow, 20 and having loads of loans, that's a massive responsibility and a bit of pressure as well, I think.
It was incredible pressure. The closest I'd come to panic attacks in my life when things didn't go right at the start.
I guess your family did support it quite a lot.
Well, I'd say my family, they're finally coming to terms with what I do, because my brother works for the company now, so they're like, both kids in this game, it must be serious. My family I kind of was a bit of a wild card kid. They didn't really understand me. They're very normal people. Like, I love them to bits. My dad's a bus driver, my mum's a retired teacher. They couldn't really work out what I was doing. They didn't understand the film industry. And it was just like, leave this crazy guy to his own devices, I would never lie to them, but, I'd tell them things like, oh, by the way, I have 7 credit cards stacked back to back. And they would look at me like, just make sure that, our flat is not on the...
So now you are 26? 26, right?
Yes.
26, and wow, you've managed to actually do a lot of things in 6 years. Did you manage to pay all the credit cards, I assume?
Yes.
But I guess in these 6 years, my question would be, what were any other struggles that you've faced?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, it's just growing, isn't it, as a person and gaining experience. Like, for example, I do produce a little bit on the side. So I remember my first 5-figure job, as in for us and the crew. So to me, 5 figures was a lot of money. If that went wrong, big problems. I remember having a panic attack and I could barely sleep during the night. Like that was my first and only like real, like, you know, like your body is just not coping with this. And nowadays I could do that in my sleep and I will not be able, you know, I will not lose a wink of sleep doing a job like that. And that's just purely from experience, seeing how things going and just knowing that you've built yourself up so that you can deal with any problem now, like getting better at chess or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So building with experience. Other challenges, I'd say, well, ageism, everything like that.
Obviously.
I am 26. I am finally at the age where I can proudly say on set, yeah, I'm 26. Before, I used to lie about my age, hide it as much as I could. I was a runner at 16 on commercials, lying, saying I was 18. Apologies for anyone. That's
this is the Truth Unfold podcast.
But because obviously, you know, you have to look at how people are going to look at you and things like that.
Yeah.
And taking you seriously. You know, I suffered from the, you know, even now I've got no full beard going on, etc. And I do feel like people, before they've seen your work and stuff, nowadays I don't usually have an issue, but they would just dismiss you to be assuming that you're not qualified because of your age, as in if you're different, you know. Yeah, definitely.
Do you
things
get
like that.
asked on set like your qualifications and all that? Did they?
No, but never. And that's the thing. I've never ever been asked for any university qualifications or anything like that ever. But I'm just saying, you know, the look the client gives you of confidence. I've had plenty of job where I've turned up, say, my name is Jack Smith, and on the phone I can sound like a 50-year-old man. And I've turned up and the client goes,
Yeah, you look a bit young.
yeah, there's plenty of times. And obviously once you get into it and they see your demeanor and they see your experience, it's fine. But that's definitely been a challenge. Yeah. So I'd say try to hide your age. People often like to ask people their age because they want to know what box to put you in, how to address you and things like that. And at the end of the day, everything is about everyone's assumptions of you. Just keep it depersonalized.
And at this stage, what are the common struggles?
With assumptions and things.
Well, not really. Like in the world of cinematography, like common struggles for you right now.
In general, for my personal problem, might not be that of many people's problems, but as I mentioned previously, I grew very naturally.
Yeah.
Marketing has always been an issue for me because I didn't sit down and plan how I was going to get from A to B. I grew naturally. My biggest problem is that I do 3 different disciplines. So generally, as I'd advise to anyone starting, is you may want to choose what you do and stick to that, because even if you are absolutely brilliant at all different things, which I believe I am, people don't naturally want to assume you are good at all these things. They want to go to that person because they specialize in that thing.
Yeah.
So some people know me as a DOP, some people know me as a drone guy, some people like a great DOP, great drone guy, or great gimbal op. They don't know me as all 3, or they don't know that I can do all 3, or they assume you can't. So I'd say definitely marketing yourself in the right way.
But do you reckon that's a bad thing, that, you know, people within the industry, they think that you're good at only one thing and they expect you to be good only at one thing? Do you think that's
It's annoying, but it's the way the world works. As in, from a client perspective, you know, you've got a guy that shoots mainly fashion. He may also be very good at shooting cars, but the client thinks, you shoot fashion, that's all you can do. Which is why it's difficult to, you know, you want to choose your lane. As in, you know, Luke Biggins, who's very famous in the music video industry, you know, rest his soul, obviously passed away, and he was a major asset to this industry. And when I used to work with him, he told me, he was like, Jack, make sure you market yourself correctly, because he's very famous in the music video industry. But he was upset in the sense that he'd only get hired for music videos now. And yes, he's at the top of the game for music video industries, but for personal reasons, who knows? He may want to get into more commercials or fashion.
Yeah.
He struggled to do that throughout his life.
But I think this is a common thing, isn't it, for people within this industry, for us as well, because you're obviously focused on your job, and it's a bit hard to market, to have the time, to find the time to market yourself. And that's just because you're too deep in your work.
Exactly.
You're too focused on it, so you would almost like need to hire someone to do that for you.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that I'd never really done. Or just take a step back and think about it. Like, this is a grievance of mine in the sense that, like, my Instagram, for example, is not very well managed in the sense that I just end up putting whatever the hell I want on there. There may be too much personality, whereby, clients that are going for DOPs are looking for, like, generally the vibe is a very well constructed Instagram where it's all these fancy frames and just very obscure vibes, and like that sells. It sells. And this is one of the reasons why I don't have an agent and other people do. And we can get into agents later. But generally, it's like I am at a crossroads with how I want to proceed into the future. I quite like my balance. But if I wanted to be just known as a big time DOP, I might have to make that transition because you got to kind of fall into that kind of box.
Is that your biggest ambition, to become the...
That is the main ambition, but whether I want to sacrifice my authenticity to get there, I am not sure. So I wouldn't like to fold, for example. I've had many conversation with big time agents that would potentially get me to a bigger space, but it meant folding. It's like being in the music industry and signing a crappy record deal. Same scenario. But there's also debates in, how you market yourself and how you want to proceed. So starting off with a plan, unlike I did, is possibly in some ways something that I can say in hindsight would be absolutely benefit you as a person, rather than being the hamster on the wheel, being like, shit, I need money, I need money, I need to keep working, and you're not thinking about all these things on the side,
But that's quite, that's quite common, that you're always, especially in our field, you always need more money because you always need more equipment. You always need this, you always need that. Something goes wrong, you need to replace it. So I guess you're always in that race.
You are. However, with me, I noticed something in the sense that COVID was a massive reality check. It was like an epiphany. It was like I'd taken ayahuasca or something, because everyone was forced not to work for a while. And I took a step back and realized, and this is a major problem for most people in the industry. And I've spoken to people who are in their 50s and 60s, and they say this in the sense that you're so used to being the hamster on the wheel, like constantly going from set to set. You have that, you start posting on Instagram, the grind doesn't stop, and all of this. And I see that as a common thing. And I believe you need to go through that stage, but don't let that become your life, because once you've kind of made it somewhere, it's now time to start thinking with your head rather than with your muscle of just continuing. I was the hamster on the wheel, and then obviously COVID forced me to take a step back, look at things, the bigger picture. And then obviously since COVID, I feel like I've come back a lot stronger in the sense of where I'm going, where the companies are going, and the overall outlook,
Did you adjust it a bit more, your ambition? As in, do you have a different ambition comparing to before COVID? Or
no, it's just more clarity about what's going on. Like I'll give you examples of, say, I'm working less, I'm doing less shoots. I'd rather, hypothetically speaking, you could be cheap. If you're cheap, you're more likely to get work all the time, 5-6 days a week. You're happy, your ego is being filled that you're on set, you're wanted, blah, blah, blah. But I would much rather do one shoot now in a week that equates to, 5 days of work, rather than tire myself out. And you get burnt out, don't you?
Yeah.
If you're doing so much projects, then you can't give each client the time and dedication that you need to do the job right. And that's something that I've developed over time. And learning that that's possibly the best route forward. But I cannot say, you can't just start in the industry with this attitude.
I was about
you
to
do
say,
need to go through an element of pain and struggle to come out of the other side.
That's a process right there, to be honest.
It's a process.
It's a process that you have to go through as a young videographer, cinematographer. You need to be, in my opinion, on all these 7 days a week shoots for less, to understand the value of your field, your own value, actually, at the end of the day, your self-worth. Because you don't really have that at the beginning, do you?
No,
you don't really have your self-worth. If you have asked me personally, I would say like a couple of years ago, and be like, right, how much are you worth a day? I don't think not many people know how to calculate
they
that?
do not. They do not.
And how do you calculate that today?
To unpick that question in terms of like, I have always looked at myself filming as a little bit more like a business than other people. I feel like a lot of people go on a tangent of they are an artist and creative, and that I absolutely respect that. But it can lead you into problems if you do need to make money. You know, if you're happy with obviously not making too much money, but you're more in it for the ego, the passion, then that works. But for someone like me, I admittedly I want money and a balanced lifestyle. You know, you know, you've got to set rates. You've got to compare yourself to the market. I wish people in the industry shared more how much they charge. A lot of people don't want to share that, and then you get massive price gaps, and people don't know what to charge, and they start looking silly. Like, this is a common thing, and I think this is, in my opinion, stupid. Is client asks you how much for this, and you say, what is your budget? I mean, to me, the what's budget question is phrased as what level of filmmaking, what level do you want this to look, not what's your budget. You know, as in, like, you need to give them, I think, you know, privately we've discussed quotes.
Yeah.
You know, the high level quote, does that include the medium level quote and the low end quote?
Yeah.
Instead of what's your budget. First of all, you got to look at yourself from the client's point of view. If someone asks you what's your budget, that's like me going to a car and being like, well, how much money have you got? You know, so basically people that make big clients who have a lot of money are thinking that you're going to charge them differently to someone who has less money for the same service. That's what it looks like, right? And therefore you look like a rogue trader.
Because if you ask the client, what's your budget? It's almost like you agree to whatever he can afford because you're desperate of work.
Yes, exactly. But I think on the flip side, it looks like you're a chancer. You don't actually know how much you're worth. Therefore, you're dishonest to yourself, because that's what it looks like. It's a harsh way to put it, but in reality, that's what it looks like. Because if you know your worth, you're gonna say set prices for things. You know,
I think one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is to help a lot, especially people from our industry that they're starting or they're currently in this field, but also clients to understand, why do we charge what we charge? So I guess, you know, when you said earlier that, you know, you're asking your client what is your budget, I think this kind of like settled what you shouldn't do in a manner, but we'll get to what you should and what you shouldn't do in a minute. But I think my first thought now is, how would you establish your day rate? How would you establish what to charge? Because obviously, as you said earlier, there's no guideline.
It's difficult for me, and I am not perfect at this. I wish I did more, but I think check in with your peers first. How much are your friends charging? And ask them to be honest. Ask them, no, it is not to undercut you. It is to find out that I am charging the industry rates of what things are worth, you know? It is over time finding, you know, if I charge this much, how many days a week am I working? And finding that balance of your work-life balance there. And just over time, trialing and erroring. There are actually like APA rate sheets for things. You know, like there is set rates for camera assistants and stuff, and that's what it's supposed to be for certain industries. When being a cinematographer, it becomes a lot more loose. So, but by the time you're at that stage, you'd have the feeling of what you're supposed to be charging. It's difficult because when you're in a set industry, and this is the industry I've come up in, well, it's commercials, it's all set. And obviously people, and I have massive respect to, say, videographers that go out on a whim and shoot music videos and stuff. I did a little bit of that. I kind of backed away from that very quickly because I feel like that is the toughest path to go down when you're completely on your own. And it's hard. But I'd say if you're in that network, Instagram and, you know, networking is so powerful nowadays.
Yeah.
Reach out to people and see what the consensus of charging is. That's the only way that you will know.
Yeah. And in your experience, what's the best practice of getting clients? Because now we've discussed a bit budgeting and, you know, how to quote or how to charge a client. But question is how to get the clients. What's the best practice?
It's different for everybody, right? And my main business is business to business. So production companies are looking to hire me, not clients generally.
Right.
That's the thing. I personally like to not go directly to the client. So I'm afraid I can't answer on that part. But if you're a videographer, a freelancer looking for work from a production company, you know, traction on social media is very powerful. Being the young kid on the block, I remember 5-6 years ago, I remember I was like one of the first who would post Instagram stories of like what's going on set. People looked at me like I was a madman. What are you doing? And now everybody's doing it because you want to show you're busy and you show your work and stuff like that. People, Instagram is so powerful in the sense that even on a minute scale, because everyone's quite fickle. Everyone forgets you very quickly. I have it all the time where I worked with someone a year or two ago and they're thinking now, oh, I need a DOP for this project. Who would be good? They've forgotten me. But then now I've posted something of me working. They're like, oh yeah, Jack, perfect.
So it really matters to be, on top of social media.
Absolutely.
Especially in our field.
Yeah, you have to look at it like a business. And I struggle still with that. I probably should have a social media manager in my life if I got round to it.
Trust me, you're doing great, mate. You're doing
No,
great.
I'm doing
You're
okay,
doing much better than I do.
It's not sleek. It's not as sleek as it
No,
should
but
be.
it's personal. So I think we're gonna just throw now on the screen your feed. It actually looks clean. I mean, it looks friendly. It looks like
Thank you.
It
Or
looks
maybe too friendly.
no, actually, I think it's somehow that human part that you have on your feed. It's quite nice, and it's a bit more relatable. Like, that's a cool guy. I would hire him. I wanna speak. And then you see some of your work, which is really professional. You were saying earlier that you don't have an agent, so let's just recap back with getting a client, right? Let's just circle back to that. So you're working with agencies, or you're working with production houses directly, and they recommend you, or is it because you said it's B2B, right?
Yeah, for me, because as I say, as a cinematographer, it is very good to have an agent because it is seen as more of an artist thing, the exact way an actor would have an agent or whatnot. I have my own battles with that, finding the balance, and I'm not there. And I think when the time is right, when I have achieved the level of work, or I've marketed myself in the right way, I will get myself a good agent and go down that route. Currently, I've had issues with it because I am an oddball in the sense that I, like owning kit, the other work I do, the complications, like I'd have to go probably cold turkey with all my things I love doing on the side, like droning, gimbalopping, which I know I'm one of the best at. I get hired for major commercials. It's hard for me to say no to this.
Yeah.
To become just a DOP. But I feel like I'm also sidetracking from your question. What was it? Remind me.
No. If you have an agent, so you pretty much you're on point on it. You don't have an agent, and I think related to this specifically,
an agent helps. Like I'll give you an example of something that happened to me in the sense that I had a major commercial that was pending. It was going to be all around the world. It was going to be quite a life-changing job for me, both in terms of status, in terms of money, everything. The director, who I know personally incredibly well, said, Jack, you're the man for this job. I want you for this job. I'm pitching you to the client. I didn't get this job because the client, who's a major corporation, said, well, for insurance purposes and just how the way the world works, we want a repped DOP with an agent. Hence,
Insane.
I was ousted from the job. So that's an example of, you might want to choose to go down that route.
It's surprising that you don't have an agent, because all these big jobs that we've seen you on social, like Imagine Dragons, I think you were drone opping during COVID. Is that correct?
Are you thinking of Placebo?
What is it? Imagine Dragons? I'm sure it was. It was like a big, massive concert that was happening.
That's Placebo.
Yeah, Placebo was it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So that was during. So I assume that all these big jobs, they were through an agent. So that's amazing.
Funny enough, and this is something that surprised me. A lot of my major clients, because I managed to get lucky, and I'll explain the agency, but it's the diary service. So as a runner, I was, let's just say, put in the top bracket of runners. I was on major commercials as a runner through a diary service, which I love them to bits, Coolbox Diary Service. They made me. It's not an agency. You pay a monthly subscription and they try to get you as much work as they can as a runner, but it's much more, it's technical based. It's not artist based. You're a runner. Most of my biggest clients now are still the clients that I was introduced as a runner. So those people had seen me grow from runner to camera assistant to this, and they're still hiring me. Some of them know me since I was literally 16, and seen all my tremendous cock-ups, shall we say. They've seen me grow, and they're still hiring me, and I think that's brilliant. It just shows there is loyalty in this industry, So you never know, who you're going to meet on the way up,
Yeah.
and how that can impede your life. So treat everyone well, I think.
Because we're talking about cinematographers, right? What's the difference between a cinematographer and a videographer? What's the difference?
Difficult. The lines blur, but I'd say the main difference, and not to put videography down because the lines blur, some of what I do I would class as videography. It's like this difference between a doctor and a nurse, say. Like the cinematographer is more in tune with the creative of what's going on. They have to have experience to obviously have a production head and a creative head, where you're discussing production elements of what crew you need for this job. Essentially, you're explaining to the director. The director has the vision. You're the person that needs to technically make it work. Which could be some of the most difficult tasks. That's why cinematography is highly praised as a skill. I'd say videography is more where you are stereotypically, because the lines blur, someone run and gun doing your own thing, maybe an event where you're not working with a big team, with a director, you're just getting coverage, more of a one-man band scenario rather than working with a team. I'd say that's the main technical differentiation, I guess, if that's the word, of how those two are.
How important is it to have a good team?
To me, it's everything, like, that old saying, like, you're only as strong as the weakest person on your team. I let people into a little secret in the sense that at the beginning of my cinematography game, I landed a few jobs which I was very shocked that, in terms of my experience, that I was given these jobs, right? Major commercials. Maybe I shouldn't say exactly which ones. At the time, I know that I was way out of my depth, and I got through that job with flying colors because I went back to the days when I was a runner, and all the crew that were at the top of the game, I hired them. They carried me through, admittedly. They carried me through. They stopped me making every possible mistake I could have made. And it's like cheating, right? But it's all to do with having the right relationship with your crew, which is why the world is made of humans. That's all it is. And I think sometimes people disregard everyone, to the runner to the camera assistant, how important people are to make sure you have a good relationship with everyone, and they want to work with you. The best crew want to work with you, because at the end of the day, the crew is what gets the job done. The cinematographer is mostly just bringing them together in the right light and providing the sort of vision.
You might just help us shed some light on what are the most important team members.
In a technical standpoint, your focus puller, from a cinematographer perspective, is your most important person. That person is your right-hand man or woman. They're making sure that, because at the end of the day, as a cinematographer, what could go wrong, it's going to look bad on you, is anything that is a camera fault. Well, the client's not blaming the camera assistant that messed up. The client's blaming you. At the end of the day, all of this is on your head. You want to make sure that your team is solid and they have your back,
Okay, first is first. You have the focus puller, but how about lighting? How important is a gaffer?
That's amazingly important. I guess I'd overlook that. I'd say they're both on the same breath of importance, because obviously as a cinematographer, you should know how to light, but sometimes things get a bit, there may be so much going on in your head, you want someone with the brain to figure things out for you, and as I say, like the lighting is crucial to being a cinematographer. That's the main value in it, knowing how to light and knowing how to light difficult setups. So obviously your gaffer is essential. Like, I wouldn't work without, I refuse to do things whereby it's compromising, where I'm not given a gaffer or anything like that. I refuse to do it.
Do you grade and edit your stuff, or do you have your own editor?
Absolutely not. And this boils down to everything I was saying about doing too much, stretching yourself too thin. For me, in terms of the way my brain works, I don't like to sit down at computers. Therefore, I've decided not to do that. And it's a plus in one way because it gives you time to focus on your craft on set with cameras. It's a minus in the other way because I know some people that edit and shoot, and that allows them to piece together the job in terms of a storyteller a little bit better. But that's better for small operations. If you're a cinematographer with a director, in theory, you don't need that. No, I oversee edits and I oversee grades. I participate in the grades. I understand exactly how they work and I give the vision to the graders, but I do not sit down and do funny things with my hands because no.
Is that how you call grading? Funny things with my hands?
Exactly. No, originally, like back in the day, I figured, because I was quite close with a grader and I loved it, and I figured that when I was too old to be operating any cameras, I'd probably move into grading.
That's your retirement plan, Jack?
My retirement plan. But now I figure hopefully I would have made enough money to not have to do that, but we'll see.
A while ago you posted on Instagram, and I think we're gonna just leave aside the grading. Fine, you don't care about grading and video editing, it's fine. We're not taking offense any of it. So whoever's grading, you can tune out from this one. Right, so I think you've spoken a while ago on Instagram stories that, you know, some professionals don't really truly appreciate their team. And specifically, you were saying that when you hire someone, make sure you pay them at the end and don't make them wait up until the client pays you. Can you shed some light on that one?
Yeah, I got so passionate about it that I ended up my only rant on Instagram. I ranted more to advise people starting up to not go down this route. It's not me being butthurt that I haven't been paid. It's literally for the sake of the people who are doing this action. You're just shooting yourself in the foot, in the sense that, yes, we have the problem, you know, getting the money off the client. Maybe it's a big corporate client. Maybe they have some nasty 60-day delay or something like that, or clients just not paying. That is not, obviously that's bad, but that's not something I'm getting involved in. That's what everyone is hating. I'm hating on the fact that there are individuals, and it just makes you look like a rogue trader, you know. If a production company, or say I hire you to do a job, I have the relation with the client, I have the responsibility of getting the money from the client. If the client hasn't paid me and it's nothing to do with your work was impeccable, you should not pass that down. That's just a rogue trader thing to do, in my opinion. And people don't understand how valuable it is to, you know, to be according to your work. Because, you know, if people don't want to work for you, then you can't get anything done.
So what happens when you don't have enough cash flow?
That is different. If you don't have enough, if you physically can't eat because you didn't get paid for this job, then that's a different question. And you need to be upfront with your crew. Maybe show them some bank statements or something like that. But just from in hindsight, people are doing decently in this industry generally. There is every single person I know that hasn't paid their crew, they could have. And they wouldn't have been destitute. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't go into obviously, if you can't pay, and I do know someone I waited a year to be paid.
Wow.
Because, well, no, I've waited years to be paid. I waited a year to be paid, and I have no bad blood for this person because he was upfront, transparent, showed me his books, showed me the situation. I understand. I mean, you can't, you know.
Yeah.
But some people, they're just physically incapable of understanding taking a loss, because that's part of business, right? You mess up sometimes, you take the financial loss, you move on. You don't go and cry about it.
That's not that people are doing that out there. So now I kind of understand the contrast of the issue that you had.
So many people do it.
Wow.
And I've been in their shoes where it's gone wrong for me. You know, I had a bad client that left me minus £9,000. Never got that money. They folded the company. I paid all my crew on time. I didn't even tell them. That, by the way, I haven't been paid. I just paid it because, I mean, even if I'm thinking self-interestedly, it's not just so that they are happy, but I know that I'm in this for the long run. 9K down is not going to stop me doing my career for the rest of my life. And I know that if I don't pay you, my reputation's down the pan. You're going to tell other people. More less and less people are going to work with you. or those people that I know are amazing at their job are not going to work with me. Why would I do that to myself? And I honestly, I genuinely think, like, I'm like, well, when people are in that scenario and they just burn crew like that, it's like, what do you think? Is there just like unlimited good labor out there? Or people are not going to tell people about you that you're a rogue trader?
I think we're kind of getting close to the end, and now we're gonna tap in personal. How do you balance, your life? What's your work-life balance? How's that going for you?
It is good now, incredibly good, I have to say. But pre-COVID, it was terrible. And
Oh, they're quite recent in that case, 3 years ago.
yeah. Like, as I say, you as we've spoken about, you have to go through the drool phase in the in the sense of, like, you have to work incredibly hard and you can't have a work-life balance. And some people say, but you need balance in life, and I disagree. You need to work hard and then get your balance, because you won't get anywhere otherwise. But then since then, and I've seen it. I've met like 60-year-old camera people that say, when I'm not on set, I just feel totally out of line. I don't know what to do with my life. And when you're on set all the time, yes, that can happen. And so now it's all about mindset. I used to, when I wasn't working, everyone gets this FOMO and this, like, insecurities of being like, I'm not getting called. I'm seeing on Instagram people are working. Why is it not working? What's going to happen with my money? Do people not want to work with me? And when it's your own business, you tend to take that really personal, don't you?
Yeah.
So now I have the mindset of enjoying the days on and enjoying the days off, respecting them, that's my time of peace, and to do my other things. I have a really good work-life balance. My Instagram makes it look like I work all the time, I must admit. But in reality, my personal life is quite private. I party a lot more than anyone would believe. That is
I hardly believe that.
No, well, that's what you think, because I would never post it or anything. Like, I have a very good social life, which is behind the lines of Instagram. I get involved in lots of things. I like to dance. I like to party. I like to do a lot of fitness things like that, etc., etc. And because my business model is now not work till you drop, do the more expensive jobs, and obviously take the time off to rest and to rethink, because I value my mental space to think about the next move now, rather than being the hamster on the wheel, as we spoke about.
Jack, recommended entry-level camera for videographers, cinematographers.
Oof. Well, I would say it's hard, because
Blackmagic.
Blackmagic, yes, because of the price point. But when you're on your own, which inevitably, sadly, you are going to be on your own, usually when you start, you want this autofocus capability as well. But if you can get past that, Blackmagic, it has to be the Blackmagic or Sony. If Sony created like an A7 III or an FX3 that had built-in NDs, then I would say that would be very hard for me to choose between Blackmagic and Sony. Right now, the FX6 is amazing, but how much is that? Like $6,000 or so? Would you say that's an entry-level camera?
No.
I'm not sure.
It's
So
quite
I guess
expensive.
it's out of that bracket. The FX6 is a perfect camera. Hence the wait. I've been waiting for it for months. There's like supply shortages in that camera. It's a great camera.
Okay, and any advice for upcoming cinematographers?
I hope throughout the process of this podcast, people have taken snippets of what I'd say. I don't. There's so many pieces of advice. Maybe have a plan before you delve into it. Make sure you pay your bills. Make sure you pay your camera teams and anyone you hire, because your reputation is everything. Your word is your bond. You cannot redeem that. Have your boundaries. Have your self-worth. Make sure that, because I could have been burnt like this badly, make sure that you're not a yes man. If someone asks you to do a project, make sure you have everything you need to do the project. I've had clients, like I've had, even to this day, major commercials whereby they've asked me, can you do this as a 1 or 2 man band? If I agreed to that and there's celebrities on set, it wouldn't have gone as planned and I would have looked like a laughing stock. And I forced them to say, no, I need this, or I'm not doing it. If you're young or just starting out, it's harder for you to hold your ground that way, right? So you have to just be acutely aware. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't agree to something when you haven't got the support behind you to do it, as in grow gradually.
And final question, I guess. any 3 must-have kit?
One of my first purchases, which is still to this day going strong, my baby doesn't leave my side, my small HD 503 ultra bright monitor, because what image you're seeing is crucial. I am not an EVF guy. I've got astigmatism in my right eye, so EVFs are based for the right eye. It doesn't really work for me. I'm a monitor guy, and as long as if your monitor is giving you the wrong image, then that's screwing you up. That's why I spend the money on expensive monitor. Only look at expensive monitors. Don't buy a cheap monitor. And this is hard to say, because when you start, you ain't got money unless you do something cheeky like I did. Cheap tripod, don't do it. Buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah, it's a golden rule in anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like a good tripod, and like just overextend yourself, because at the end of the day, if you look like you've got the equipment that is needed for the, then you're going to get better jobs in return. Like I live frugally in the sense that, well, not even frugally, but people who are young always get excited and they spend all this money on a fancy Mercedes or something like that. Spend it on your kit instead.
So you have monitor, you have tripod, and the third one. What would be the third one?
Apart from the camera.
Apart from the camera, obviously.
I cannot say. I love if you're a videographer and you're on your own, an iPad for efficiency. As it like you've got there, my iPad has made me so much more efficient, Or Apple Watch. Why? Because this industry is so quick and fast paced. I notice a lot of people lose out because they're not that contactable. Someone needs a job done. If you don't pick up the first time, they might go to the next person. Make sure you're available in a capacity to respond to the client, to the demand when it is there. And that's the way I managed to do it.
Perfect. Jack, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for accepting to come and see us.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.